This is the one you've known as Jesus the Christ. There's a trick to accepting something you don't want to accept, which I'll tell you about today. So much has already been written about acceptance. It's obviously central to spiritual freedom. This is because acceptance is the opposite of resistance, the opposite of what the ego does. So if you do the opposite of your default and accept something, you've broken free of the default, free of your ego. Acceptance is more of a non-doing than something you do, while resistance is definitely something you do. Resisting something takes energy and sometimes time. Acceptance, on the other hand, takes no energy or time. Acceptance is a surrendering or relinquishing of resistance and whatever energy is going into that. Resistance comes from the voice in your head. It says things like, "I don't want that. I don't like that. That shouldn't be. That's too hard," and any number of other similar arguments and objections to the way things are. When you stop thinking thoughts like this, which make you feel unaccepting, you're left with acceptance. When you stop doing resistance, you naturally fall into acceptance. On the other hand, if you try to accept something, that's effortful. You're trying to do something. Who is this you that would try to accept something? Wouldn't that be the ego trying to comply with spiritual instructions? Trying to accept something is a mental effort, something you try to do with your mind. The problem with trying to accept something is that you're still in your mind, still in the grasp of your ego. The egoic mind tries to manipulate and fix your life through thought, but this is not effective. You can't get to acceptance by thinking your way to it. To accept something, you have to move out of your thoughts by dropping them. That's the only doing required. Stop trying to fix the resistance, which was created by thoughts, through thought. Do nothing but stop thinking the thoughts that created the resistance. It isn't as hard as you might think to stop thinking something. You just think it's hard. That belief that it's hard to stop thinking is part of the illusion and helps hold the illusion in place. Going against this programming seems difficult, so people often don't even try. The illusion is that it's difficult to go against the programming, while the truth is that it's not. The programming itself is not as difficult to overcome as the belief that it's difficult to overcome. The way to move out of your thoughts is to give your attention to something other than your thoughts. Giving attention is easy. You're doing it all the time. But you may need to direct your attention more intentionally. If you don't, the ego will direct your attention for you, since that's your default. What else is there to give your attention to? Real life, the sound of an airplane, light as it reflects off something, your own breath, the experience of your feet touching the ground, the feeling of air on your face, the subtle sense of joy inside, the aliveness in your hands, the subtle elation of being alive. Any and all of these will bring you out of the ego's world into reality, including the subtle realm in which you know yourself as the divine self. Being present in your body and senses is a doorway into the subtle realm. The mind cannot enter this realm. It has to be left at the doorstep. Reality is whatever is happening now, in this present moment, in your vicinity of the universe, your body's and your being's actual experience of life, beyond any mental ideas about it all. When you accept something, someone, or some situation, you're responding as your divine self. Acceptance belongs to the divine self, while resistance, as I said, belongs to the ego. This is a handy way of telling what you're aligned with. Are you accepting or are you resisting? Or you could ask it this way: are you relaxed and at peace or not? That's how you can tell whether you're aligned with the divine self or not. It's really quite simple. The way things are is the way things are. Resistance argues against the way things are, which, if you examine this, is pointless. All the ways your mind comes up with to resist life are futile. Resistance is futile. Wanting things to be other than the way they are is a waste of energy, and yet that is the ego's knee-jerk reaction to life. Resistance isn't the way that change comes about. Resistance changes nothing except your state of consciousness. Resistance only makes you unhappy, and that makes you less effectual. Resistance is dysfunctional. It is the nature of life to change, and life changes in its own way and time. The only thing that can interfere with the course of this natural unfolding of life is the ego, which has its own agenda and ideas about how life should unfold. The divine self lets the ego try to change things according to its ideas and desires, but such changes tend to be unsatisfying, and they often result in lessons. Resistance affects life by making life more difficult. Through you, the divine self brings about necessary changes without any added pain or suffering. To be free of resistance, all that's necessary is to see the truth about it. It's useless. It gets you nowhere. It's exhausting. It makes you unhappy, and it always comes from the ego. The divine self loves it all and accepts it all. Resistance is not in the divine self's repertoire, only the ego's. Once you realize how useless resistance is, and that it's the ego's way of making you unhappy, you'll more easily be able to slide into the acceptance of your divine self, which coexists alongside the ego's resistance. The reason you aren't more aware of this innate and ever-available acceptance is that the divine self doesn't have a mental voice. It doesn't speak to you in your head like the ego does. The ego's voice is dominant and strong, and it's your default, so you must search a little for the true self's acceptance. As with all the other qualities of the true self, such as love and courage, acceptance exists inside you, in the subtle dimension, not in your mind. To experience acceptance, all you have to do is stop agreeing with the ego's voice. That is the non-doing I'm talking about. Stop agreeing with the ego. The voice in your head is not your voice. See the voice in your head for what it is and turn away from it. You are what can see this and what can choose to turn away from the voice in your head. What is left when you do that is everything you've ever wanted, everything that will make you truly happy. The ego can only keep you away from that with its voice. Amazing! Just words in your head keep you from being your divine self, from being in the flow, from happiness, and from the treasure trove of gifts you've been given to navigate this life. So my advice to you for becoming more accepting is to simply stop giving your power to the voice in your head and turn toward that which is more subtle and yet more real. Turn toward whatever is actually present in the here and now, whatever you're sensing and experiencing in this moment on a sensory level and on a more subtle level, including intuitions, inspiration, joy, love, and peace. When you stop giving your attention to the voice in your head, it's possible to discover another way of living that feels so different from the world of the ego that it's like another world. And so it is. You can be in this world as your ego and have the pain, suffering, and lessons involved in that, or you can be in this world as the divine self and experience it rejoicing in life. The divine self loves life. It experiences nothing but love and joy in existence. This love and joy are found in the subtle world. When you turn your attention to the subtle world, love and joy are your experiences as well. You know what the subtle world is because you've been immersed in it all of your life, and now that you see the value in paying more attention to it, you can begin to do that. You are awakening to the fact that you are the divine self and not the ego or false self. As you wake up to this, sometimes you identify with the ego and sometimes with the divine self. When you've seen through the illusion more fully, you'll realize yourself as the divine self in a deeper and more complete way. Until then, you must learn the tricks of the illusion, how it tries to fool you, and how it's held in place. Become wise to it. Resistance is one of the things that upholds the illusion. Fears, doubts, distrust, lack, and other lies are other thoughts that uphold it. Essentially, the illusion is upheld by lies. That is why the truth will set you free. As with all the thoughts that uphold the illusion, seeing through resistance isn't easy. When you're identified with the ego, resistance is so persistent and all-pervasive that it's difficult to be aware of all the ways you automatically resist life. Every I want and I like is a sign of resistance. These thoughts imply rejection of whatever you don't like or don't want. So watch these thoughts. Notice them and realize that they keep you prisoner of your own ego. Because I want and I like are so automatic, they seem so innocent. They are so normal. These words fill people's inner world. Notice this. Notice how prevalent your thoughts are about what you like and don't like, and what you want and don't want. Without these, who are you? Without your opinions about what is good and what is bad, who are you? If you don't divide the world up into good and bad, who are you? The ego runs from this discovery, but the you who is waking up is interested in this inquiry and interested in this teaching and ready to see the truth. Thank you for being willing to explore the truth. Thank you for being here. I am with you always.